Grr, arg.
Welcome to the Mixtape Podcast, a podcast where we review movies from a screenwriter's perspective, but also from a fan's perspective because we usually review movies that we really love. This week, we are reviewing Rambo First Blood. Only released in 1982. I'm your host. My name is Dean. I'm joined as always by Marcelo and Nostroza. Rambo First Blood was directed by Ted Kotcheff. It was written by Michael Cazole and William Sackhelm and Sylvester Stallone, and it was based on the novel First Blood by David Morrell, first released in 1972. So if you don't know what Rambo First Blood is about, it's this. A veteran Green Beret is forced by a cruel sheriff to flee into the mountains and wage war. I love the Rambo movies, but I especially love the first one because everybody thinks Rambo's action, action, action. But the first one is not action. The first one is really a drama, and it's really about the psychological effects of war on a war veteran. So the opening scene of Rambo, we meet John Rambo, and he's played obviously brilliantly by Sylvester Stallone. And he's inquiring about his old friend from the Vietnam War. They both served together. He's asking do you know where he is? And the woman he's talking to informs him that he's passed away. And you can just see the blood drain out of his face. He's just like, oh, he's come all this way, searched all this way, and his friend that he really wants to meet up with and talk to is not there. And usually, look, I don't have any military in my family, but usually if you're military and you come back to like the real world, the only people that really understand what you went through are the people that you served with. And we later realized that Rambo is the last living survivor of his team. So you feel even more sorry for him. But in saying that, that was the opening scene. We met John Rambo. We learned that he was in Vietnam War. We learned that his buddy was killed. And I think that's all we learned. But it was a good setup. I think it was a good setup because you really got a gauge of John Rambo because Sylvester Stallone plays him so well. He's very quiet. He's very unassuming, but he looks like he could probably take you out. But anyway, what did you think?
Yeah, first of all, I grew up with Rambo. I love Rambo, but the opening sequence to the original Rambo, First Blood, is so good because it just has Sylvester Stallone, like Dean said, walking into a small village looking for his friend. And the way that Sylvester Stallone plays it when he keeps asking the town folk, where can I find my friend? It's so wonderful because it's almost like Sylvester Stallone brings this quiet desperation to the character, and when he finally speaks to a black woman who is putting up clothes on a dryer outside, and she finally tells him that his friend died 2 years ago from cancer, the look on John Rambo's face is like one of it's like one of horror, because I really think that this was John Rambo's last remaining friends in the world, and one of the last people that was keeping him tied to reality. Because what happens after this is just really, really, well, there's no other way to put it. It's bad.
Yeah.
And also I do agree with Dean that once you go and serve, and when you come back, when you come back around to the real world, there's a small number of people that can identify with what you've gone through, whether it's retired service members or the people that you actually served with. So it's like a really, really small fraternity of individuals that you can relate to once you return back and come back into the world after you serve your country.
Yeah, exactly. So the first official scene of the movie, Rambo's kind of wandering into a small town when the sheriff pulls up next to him and he's like, "Hey, where are you going?" And Rambo's like, just, walking through.
What
like
a
this,
ball
like,
bag.
oh, big bad,
This
big ball bag.
This guy is the definition of a ball bag. If you look up ball bag in the fucking dictionary, you'll see a picture of his big fucking face.
Okay, but who's worse, this guy or the mayor of Amityville in Jaws? Because he was a ball bag too.
You know what? Look, I'm gonna say this guy because you're right. The mayor in Jaws was a ball bag, but he was like a lovable ball bag. This guy is just a fucking
Straight up.
ball bag straight up.
Yeah.
You know, at least the mayor in Amityville had some flourishes to him. This guy's just a fucking prick.
He is. That's true. That's a good word to describe him. He's absolutely a prick. So he basically doesn't want him in his town because this small town sheriff thinks he owns the town, which they don't, but he doesn't have the power to pick and choose who's allowed to be in his town and who's not. He's just, like Marcelo said, he's a fucking ball bag. And he thinks he's going to cause trouble. He's like, by the look of you, you're going to cause trouble just based off of your haircut. And this is what I didn't understand. And he points at his jacket and your jacket. Now this really confused me because he was just wearing a plain green jacket with, on one side it said US Army, but you actually couldn't see it because his satchel was covering it. But on the other side was the American flag. So I didn't understand. Did the sheriff not like him having the American flag on his jacket? I didn't get that.
I think that I think that the sheriff's hate for John Rambo came from a large part of it came from the fact that he is anti-war and he didn't support the war, and he thinks
Right.
that every individual that comes back from the war comes back as a fucked up vagrant here
Right,
to
right, right.
here to here to disturb the good people of this small town.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So anyway, Rambo gets in the car, doesn't say anything, man, a few words, and he drops him on the edge of town. He's like, "Yep, if you go about 30 miles down the road, you're gonna find." He won't even let him like go to a diner and like have something to eat. Like this guy's a prick. And so he drops him on the edge of town. He turns around, he starts driving back to the town, and Rambo's like, That's the thing. Sylvester is so good in this role. He doesn't say anything. But you can see in his head, he's like, "Oh, fuck this guy." And he just turns around and he starts walking back to town. And the sheriff in his rearview mirror sees him doing it. He stops, turns around, gets out, and grabs him. And he's very, very violent with Rambo. But it's funny because once you know the movie, once you know Rambo, you know that Rambo could take this guy out in a microsecond, but he doesn't. He doesn't. He holds back and he keeps calm, and he's just arrested like for no reason. But there's no other, all the sheriff's deputies are just as ball baggy as him, and they go on line with him, and there's nothing really Rambo can do but just go along with it and hope that he gets out of it alive, which he does. But there's a whole movie. But anyway, what did you think about that scene?
To your point about how Rambo goes about dealing with the sheriff, I really think that at this point, when he is told by the sheriff to fuck off and go and get out of the town and go get dinner somewhere else, and when the sheriff sort of leaves Rambo at the end of town, turns the car back around and goes back into town, and he sees Rambo walking back in. I think Rambo, to make a long story short, is trying to not only control himself, but I think he's trying to keep down his post-traumatic stress that he may have
Yeah.
in his head.
Yeah.
Because as we're going to learn here in the scenes that Dean's going to talk about in a minute, John Rambo is seriously fucked up. And everything that these fucking cops are going to do to him exacerbate the fact that he is suffering from post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't suffering from post-traumatic stress, I think that watching John Rambo do everything that he's going to do to these stupid cops would be entertaining, but it would be less so. But the fact that John Rambo is in a weak state of mind at this point makes it even more compelling.
Yeah, exactly. So they take him, or the sheriff takes him to the station, and his deputies are just fuckwits. And he's just abused. I mean, everything they do to him when he's at the station is so illegal. It is astonishing. Like, they make him take all of his clothes off, and they have, I don't know why they have a fire hose in the police station, and they just turn it on him. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? This is not a thing. And then they give him back his clothes. And
They do that in some prisons for vagrants.
prisons, because this is a small town where a guy didn't do anything. He should have just, like, if they were going to do something to him, they should have just put him in a cell. But okay,
Yeah,
if they do
yeah.
that, they do that. But that's still wrong.
Dean, we've established that these fucking cops are pricks.
They're fuckwits. Yeah. I know. So they hose him down, and then they shave him, which he didn't really need to be shaved. He didn't have a beard. He had a minor 5 o'clock shadow, so I thought that was quite funny. But as the knife is coming towards him, he's got one deputy behind him holding him in place. He's got another one coming at him with a knife, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'm just going to shave you." But this is setting off Rambo's post-traumatic stress. He's going back to Nam. He's going back to the war. He's going back to when he was a prisoner of war and abused and attacked and all this other shit. And that triggers him. And as soon as Rambo's triggered, he turns into Rambo and he just fucking beats the shit out of every single deputy in the station and escapes. Just runs out. And that was it. That was the scene.
Yeah, listen, I thought that was a great scene, and look, and the fact that John Rambo didn't cooperate them just exacerbated the situation more. I mean, when they were trying to print him, and that fucking deputy guy, the guy with the red hair, Art, who kept asking him for his name, and the fact that John didn't give it to him, and the only way that they found out his name is they actually ripped off his dog collar tags off his neck, which I thought was really mean of them to do, I guess.
Disrespectful.
Disrespectful, that's the word I was looking for. But my favorite two moments of that scene or that sequence is when Rambo is just about to be shaved and you have one officer, holding him from the back with his nightstick at his neck, and you have the other guy about to shave him, and you get the flashbacks of him being tortured by a Chinese gentleman, and the Chinese gentleman in his flashback actually slices his chest open, which is some gnarly ass shit. But that's when Rambo gets activated, and he beams the hell out of the station. So it's a really, really great tension filled sequence, and it's a great job from a writing aspect, I thought, to ratchet up the tension.
Yeah. So Rambo, as he runs out of the station, he steals a dirt bike and the sheriff gets into his car and there's a chase scene. That's a really, really cool chase scene. And the stunt guy that was that doubled as Sylvester Stallone did such a good job on the dirt bike. Like, obviously you don't know it's a stuntman, but you do because it is a stuntman. It's not Sylvester. And chases him into the woods until he loses track of him. And then the sheriff calls for backup and calls tracker dogs and a helicopter and says, "We'll get him, no problem." But if you know the movie, that's not really how it goes, right? Even with tracker dogs, I don't know how he can get a helicopter. He's a small town sheriff, but whatever. Maybe they just have a helicopter. I don't know. That's not a nitpick. That's just a question. But anyway.
No, but also, I just want to point in just real quickly.
Yeah.
Sheriffs in small towns who have a lot of power can do that.
Okay.
Not to defend this pick, because I'm not trying to do that. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying that sheriffs in small towns have that type of power.
Okay. Because I don't know anything about like small town America and how like the small town sheriffs work. So if I say something, then definitely jump in and correct me. I don't know how it works. There's cops chasing Rambo through the woods with tracker dogs, and Rambo is barely keeping out of range. When he goes to climb down a cliff. He's come to a cliff edge. He's like, fuck, where do I go? He climbs down the cliff edge. Now a helicopter arrives, and one of the cops that abused him at the station is in the helicopter, and he's armed with a sniper rifle, and he spots Rambo climbing down this side of the cliff, and he starts shooting at him because he can. Not because he has to, because he fucking can, because he's a dick. And then Rambo just goes like, he doesn't say anything, but you can see he's thinking. He jumps off, lands in a tree, lands on the ground, injures himself. I think he just like cuts himself, dislocates his shoulder, whatever he does. And the cop is still trying to shoot him. Rambo's scurried behind a tree. The guy's still in the helicopter. He's still trying to shoot him. And then Rambo finds a rock and throws it at the helicopter, and it hits the windscreen. And the helicopter kind of turns suddenly. And the cop, who's not strapped in, falls out of the helicopter to his death. And Rambo runs up to him, takes his coat, takes his gun, takes his radio, The cops at the top of the cliff, they look down, they see the dead cop, and Rambo comes running out and he's got his hands up and he says, I didn't kill him. I don't want any more death. Please, please, please. I don't want to hurt anyone. And the cops just start firing at him because they're fucks. They're fuckwits. And so he runs. So you can see, like, he doesn't want to cause trouble. And he legitimately did not kill that officer. But the cops in this movie, I mean, they're supposed to be dickheads, otherwise there's no movie. But I thought that was a really cool action scene with the chase, with the death of the police officer, which only ramps up things. Like, there was a point to it because now the sheriff has this vendetta because this guy killed my friend. No, you killed your friend, because if you had never picked on John Rambo, your friend would still be alive. So it is your fault. Anyway, tell me what you thought.
Yeah. I thought that these two scenes were an excellent exercise in escalation when you are designing a script. If you want to ratchet up the tension of any script that you write, just put two intelligible scenes back to back that push the story forward and push your characters to a point of no return, or to a point where you put them, or to a point where you back them against the wall and you show them that they have no way out. And then you try and physically write them out of the wall that you just put them up against. And I think that that's what the screenplay writer did in this specific scene. The fact that Rambo keeps getting fucking baited by these fucking cops is just fucking annoying, because I'm sitting there watching this movie going, you motherfuckers have no idea who you're dealing with. He's going to kill all of you.
But they will.
Yeah.
They will.
But also, listen, but also, I don't think that this small town sheriff has the tact to be a small town sheriff, because he's a fucking bully, man. Because that point when he notices his friend who has just died because he fell out of the helicopter, like he doesn't give Rambo what he wants. He doesn't give him the opportunity to surrender. He just fucking shoots him.
Yeah.
What cop does that?
Yeah, especially because he's done nothing wrong. He's done nothing but walk into the town.
If Rambo has done anything wrong, the one thing that he's done wrong is that when he was in the station trying to get printed and he didn't talk to them, that's what aggravated them even more. If he would have talked to them just a little bit, that would I feel that would have given him a little bit more leeway into them being so pissed off with him. Then again, look. Then again, by him talking at the station, the writer of the movie could have had Rambo say something really dumb and really stupid, and you could have ratcheted up the tension that way. But by having him not talk, it just enraged them further.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. So the sheriff receives some information about Rambo. He receives his name. His name is John Rambo. He's a Vietnam vet. He's a Green Beret. He has a Congressional Medal of Honor. He's a war hero. And the guy on the radio says, do you still want to pursue him? And the sheriff sits there and he goes, yeah. He decides that his ego and his anger and his aggression overrides that this guy is a war hero. And I think later on we understand he's received like 2 or 3 Purple Hearts or something. And it's so this is a question for you. If you were this sheriff, would any of this information make a difference to you?
Oh yes, absolutely. Even listen, even if I was obsessed with making sure that John Rambo found his way into an early grave, this information would give me pause, and I would think, okay, I want to bury this guy. I want to make sure that he ends up in a casket at the end of the day. But with what I just heard, is my vendetta actually worth it?
Exactly. He didn't take time to stop and think, hey, this guy's a war hero, so maybe he's not who I thought he was. But I think the sheriff's ego took over completely because he knows Rambo actually didn't do anything wrong. So he's just trying to cover his ass. Like, well, fuck, I can't go back on my word now. I have to keep going, which is what people like him do. Even when they know that they've done the wrong thing, they're so embarrassed that they can't turn tail and admit they were wrong. And there are so many people like that in the world that it's just, I mean, I'm sure everybody listening to this will be like, yeah, I know that person. Right? They're fuckwits because they cannot, by not admitting that you've made a mistake, you just make everything worse. But
Yeah.
you don't care because you don't want to be embarrassed and you don't want to admit you're wrong. Anyway,
When you make a mistake, the best thing that you can do, and the mark that shows that you are a better man, is to admit your mistake and to not and to not bury yourself with it. But a lot
yeah.
of people, like Dean said, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So Rambo quickly realizes that they are not going to stop hunting him. So he decides to fall back on his Green Beret training and he starts to make booby traps and he uses the forest to his advantage because we'll learn later what skills he actually has. So the cops, he's called in, this fucking sheriff is called in so many fights. He's called in the National Guard, he's fucking called in everybody. So the cops start walking one by one into the booby trap. Oh no, he hasn't called in the National Guard yet. These are just his fucking deputies. The cops start walking into Rambo's booby traps one by one. Rambo just he doesn't kill them, he just wounds them and then jumps them. And then he jumps out at the sheriff. He puts a knife to his throat and he says, I could have killed them. I could have killed them all, but I didn't. Don't push me or I'll give you a war you wouldn't believe. Let it go. Which is such good dialogue. And then he just leaves him. And that kind of shows he could have killed all the deputies. He could have killed this sheriff, but he fucking didn't. And right there, the sheriff should have gone, okay, I have this information. He's a war hero. Obviously, he's going through something. He chose not to kill us. Let's back off. But no, he doesn't do that. He just fucking escalates things. But anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, listen, that sequence when the sheriff gets together his idiot posse of deputies and they go into the woods chasing after John Rambo and they fall into his traps. It's just great because that shows you that, listen, John Rambo is a competently trained professional soldier. And like he said, if he wanted them all dead, he would have killed them all. But the traps that he made were specifically only to wound. If he wanted to kill them, he would have killed them all. But the fact that he didn't
Hmm.
tells us that he believes in mercy.
Yeah, exactly.
I really think that in the movie, this is the point of no return for the sheriff. This is his one and only opportunity where he could have gone, okay, I'm a little bit over my head here, and I need to really think about this. And if I'm going to get out, I get out now. And the
Mm.
fact that he didn't get out, the fact that this situation with Rambo, specifically the end when Rambo has the knife to his throat and he says, if I wanted them all dead, they would be.
Mm.
That just drove me crazy that the guy didn't get out when he could. I was like, you're an idiot. You deserve to die.
Yeah. So what is he? What he calls in the National Guard? Of course, he wants to escalate everything. So as they're mobilizing, there's fucking news cameras there. A man shows up, and he says, "You didn't make Rambo. I made him." And this is Colonel Sam Troutman, and he explains he was Rambo's commanding officer in Vietnam. He says, "I didn't come here to rescue Rambo from you. I came to rescue you from him." And just by that sentence, you find out how dangerous Rambo really is. like the dialogue is not a lot in this movie, but when people speak, they speak.
I just want to add on to something you just said there. The
Mm,
dialogue in the movie is not a lot, but when it is, when there is dialogue, it hits. I love Rambo's commanding officer. I love Troutman because
mm,
Troutman is that guy that walks into a bar and says, to all you stupid guys who think that that guy isn't able to kick her ass, you're all wrong, and I'm going to sit
mm.
here and I'm going to watch him ruin all of you.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also, just one last thing. Also, the fact that Sylvester Stallone has very little dialogue in this movie, I think, is what drives it home because when he
Mm,
does speak, he's like Batman. He
yeah.
he he
It's
chooses
for
his
purpose.
words. Yes, he chooses his words very carefully, and like Dean just said, it's for purpose. It's for
Yes,
purpose.
that's exactly right what you just said. So then he explains, Rambo is an expert in guerrilla warfare, an expert with guns, knives, and his bare hands, a man who was trained to ignore pain and weather. And you're just like, fuck. Like, honestly, you know what I would like to see before, but I'll ask you what you thought of that whole scene. I would, as I was watching this movie, I'm like, you know what I would love? I would love to see a fight between Rambo and Chuck Norris. I honestly don't know who would win. I don't know. Who do you think?
I'm look. I'm gonna go with John Rambo because I I do love myself some Chuck Norris. I mean, when I was a little kid, I loved Walker Texas Ranger, but Chuck Norris seems too much of a goody goody to me. So I'm going with John Rambo.
All right, I'm going with Chuck. I'm going Chuck just to
Okay,
be opposite to
okay.
you. Just to
Oh,
be
you
opposite.
going with Chuck? Okay, okay.
Just to be opposite.
Are you only going with Chuck just to go against me, or do you think that my argument has some merit?
I think that Chuck Norris could beat Rambo in a fist to fist fight. I
Uh huh.
legitimately think that. Like, obviously not like when they were both in their primes. Like, I'm talking about when they're in like 25, 25. Fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like a fucking Mortal Kombat battle.
Right. Okay. But to go back to this scene, to the introduction of Rambo's commanding officer. I love this character because this character really affirms to the audience how badass John Rambo is, and how inevitably fucked everyone who goes after John Rambo is going to be. And I love the way that in the script they ramp him up by saying he's the best at gunplay, he's the best at knife play. He,
Mm,
he can survive in cold weather. He can eat shit that makes that makes a goat puke. It's just
yeah.
so great.
Mm,
It's like, look, this movie is I'm not comparing these two characters because these two characters come from very different times,
mm.
but John Rambo in this movie is almost like John Wick to me.
Oh,
The
okay.
he's like
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, similar.
he's like the Baba Yaga of
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
uh of the 80s, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's similar. He's similar to John Wick. So the Colonel tries to coax him out. He gets on the radio because the cops are trying to get him on the radio because Rambo stole the dead cop's radio. He's not answering. And the Colonel says, "Let me try," because he's gone radio silent. So he gets on and he's calling him by his code name, and he's like, and Rambo's looking at the radio because he knows he's gone into battle mode. So he's got to talk to him like a commanding officer. And he's trying to talk him down. He's trying to get him to come out and trying to stop him from shedding any more blood from any, because he knows he doesn't want to do that. He just knows that he's in a warlike headspace. And Rambo gets on the radio and he says, "The last of my team who's alive is dead. And I can't come out as they drew first blood." And then he just like turns the radio off. Basically, like the war's not over until he says it's fucking over because they started it. And I was like, oh, I got chills. Oh, I got chills. And what do you think? What do you think?
It's such a really good line. It also really plays into a lot of where John Rambo's mindset is from a psychological standpoint, because the second that the sheriffs declared war on him, Rambo is not essentially thinking like a person at this point. He's more of a he's more like a hybrid killing machine than an actual person at this point, because
Mm,
he in this situation, he is a person that will do anything to survive within reason, I guess.
yeah.
And I really, really like the scene because when Trapman tries to get him on the radio, he uses his call sign. But the other thing that he does is he actually uses the call signs of all of Rambo's teammates who have died.
Mm,
And I really like that because that really shows you how alone John Rambo is in the world, and the
yeah.
only person that he has left that can relate to what he's going to is the colonel, is his commanding officer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So Rambo is he's in the woods. He's still trying to like get out of the woods. And he comes across a boy, just a boy that's hunting very innocently. And the boy is terrified. Rambo jumps out at him kind of knocks him to the ground and puts a knife to his throat, but he doesn't hurt him and he doesn't kill him. He just kind of like steps over him and moves on. And then the boy fucking yells to his parents, and then the cops are, fucking idiot. Anyway, that's not the problem. The issue, what I want to talk about was that this was a really good scene. Some people might think this is a nothing scene, but from a screenwriter's perspective, this really spoke volumes about John Rambo, because it shows that he doesn't hurt people and kill people like on purpose, like for no reason, because he could have just killed this boy, but he didn't. He only does it to defend himself. He's not a killer. And just in that 2-minute scene, it spoke volumes about John Rambo's character. And I thought that was an essential scene for his character. What do you think?
I love that scene for all the points that Dean just made. The scene really illustrates that John Rambo, again, only kills as an absolute necessity, and he's not a monster. He's
Yeah.
he's still a person with a soul and with a heart. And I really think that actually endears John Rambo to the audience, because I'm not sure if a lot of people watching this movie when it came out, or watching this movie later on, really kind of understood where John Rambo's trauma is coming from, and why he went off the rails like that. Because a lot of people watching this movie may think, oh, he went off the rails because the dumb sheriff in the town, or the dumb police in the town decided to be dicks to him. That was part of it, but
Yeah.
also he's suffering from post-traumatic stress. So
Yeah.
he is not mentally all there. And
Yeah.
that is the fascinating point of this movie that I don't think a lot of people talk about when they
Yeah. I think
watch it.
people that have never been to war couldn't possibly understand. I can't understand. Like, you just can't. You can imagine. I can imagine what it would be like. You don't know. You
No,
can't.
you don't. You
You
can't.
don't know
It's
what
impossible.
mentally they'd be. It's impossible. What mentally they would be going through. Now, the next scene, it's not really anything that pushes the story forward, but I wrote it down because it's just the National Guard. Well, maybe the National Guard. I don't know. Some idiots, the cops. They sort of spot Rambo, and he's standing in a mine shaft, and they blow it up, and they think, "Oh yeah, we got him," but like,
Oh,
it's a mine shaft, so it goes back, right?
if I could, just 1 second.
Yeah.
That's not the National Guard. Those are the weekend warrior motherfuckers.
Right. So them. Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
who was. I didn't know fucking who was who. So
And
it's them.
the-
It's them. So anyway, it's a mine shaft. They blow it up, and they're like, they're idiots, right? They're like, yeah, we got him. We got John Rambo, but like, John Rambo's like a cockroach. It's really difficult to kill. So anyway, the scene that I like was he's traipsing through the tunnels, and he makes a fire torch, and it's such a visually stunning scene, because half of it is water, so up to his waist is water, and then it's just kind of rock above him, and he's just got this fire torch, and it's filmed in a way where it's so claustrophobic and you feel like you're there. So I think the director did such a good job in the way that he decided to film that. So, I mean, again, it doesn't push the story forward, but visually, I mean, look, if you know the podcast, I notice when directors are good and I notice when they're shit, but I don't notice when they're mediocre. But this director done a really, really good job.
Yeah, that sequence when Rambo is going through the mine and he has the torch. I love the use of color in the scene, because
Mm,
as Rambo goes through the mind, the light of the torch splashes back on his face, and it
yeah.
creates such a beautiful, haunting, awesome visual. And also
Yep.
the like Dean said, the water is up to his knees, so it's
Mm,
very disgusting and damp, and it's just gross. But
yeah.
the the addition of the torch just really brings that scene to life in a way that couldn't be possible if they chose to take that scene in another direction. The
Yeah.
other thing about that scene that I like very, very much, when Rambo comes to like a fork in the tunnel, he takes the torch and he sticks it up against a rock formation or something. And
Mm,
it looks so fucking cool. I mean, it's
right.
just a really small little tiny moment, but that scene is fantastic.
So Rambo makes it out of the mine shaft, and he comes to a road, and he steals a military truck. He kind of kicks the driver out, and he ends up I don't know how, but the cops get wind that he's stolen a truck. Now there's about 5 or 6 of these military trucks. Somehow they find out the one that he's driving and they get to him very quickly, which I thought was weird. So he ends up plowing through a police blockade, which looks really cool. And he travels back to town, blowing up the military truck, which in turn blows up a gas station, which in turn blows up like a car yard, which looks really fucking. He's basically blowing up the entire town because fuck you. Like, that's literally the only reason. Fuck you. That's why he's doing it. And like, fucking rightly so. So he starts shooting out the electrical grids and the town goes dark. Now, before I move on, because this is kind of the last sequence, before I move on to the next part of the sequence, do you think he's angry? Do you think he's pissed? What do you reckon?
Yeah, listen. I think he is. I think he is lightly pissed. I don't think he's like overly pissed at this point. But for John Rambo, specifically, if you watch the other films that we're not going to talk about today, I think that he is lightly pissed. But watching him destroy the town and destroy the car yard, like Dean said, and destroy the gas station, also like Dean said, it's just so delightful because
Yeah.
you're like, all these fucking people from the small town didn't deserve any of this. The only reason that this is happening to their small town is because of their fucking stupid sheriff.
Mm.
So in a way, I feel really bad for the people living in this town
That they
because
have a fuckwit as a sheriff.
yeah, and also the one thing that this movie doesn't address that I think would have been really cool for them to talk about is if the colonel brought a psychiatrist with him, and
Mm.
if the psychiatrist tried to explain to the sheriff the reason why he lost his mind is because he was having flashbacks. Is
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
suffers. I think that would be.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a really interesting wrinkle to put in there. To address one of Dean's points, just really quickly. I don't know how they found him so fast after he stole that truck. The only thing that I can surmise is writer's convenience, which is something that I say often on our little
Yeah.
show.
Look, it's not a big thing. I don't care. It's just I'm just posing the question. It's not a big thing. So anyway, Rambo, who has gone into an armory and stolen like the biggest gun he can find, he's blown that up too, and that's gone sky high. He goes to the police station and starts shooting up the police station because fuck him. Fuck the sheriff. Fuck you. That's why he's doing it. The sheriff runs to the roof. And it's like a flat roof, so he kind of climbs up into the attic and then climbs up onto the roof. And Rambo goes into the police station. And everything's dark because he's shot out the electrical grid. And there's like a glass, a little bit of a glass ceiling, so the cop can see Rambo. And the cop tries to shoot Rambo, but misses. Rambo points his big ass gun up at him and shoots through the window and gets the cop. The cop falls down right in front of Rambo, and Rambo approaches the sheriff and wants to kill him so bad. So fucking bad. You could see he just wants to rip his fucking head off. And then the colonel steps in and tells him to stop. And the building is now suddenly surrounded by like 50 cop cars.
Where'd they come from?
I don't know. Again, look, I love this movie, so I'm not going to nitpick it. It's not
Yeah,
a
of
big
course
issue
not.
for me. You know,
It's
it's
no,
fine.
no,
It's
it's
fine.
not. It's not. It's
It's
not.
fine.
I'm kidding.
I know, but like I have the same question. Like how they got there pretty fucking fast. Anyway, Rambo says to the colonel, the war's not over for him. Back in Vietnam, he was somebody, and here he can't even get a job and people hate him. The thing is, that's what happens. The vets come back. Nobody understands what they've been through. They can't connect with anybody. They find it hard to get a job. The government doesn't really take care of them. The government doesn't give a shit. And that's not just the American government. That's literally governments all around the world. You know, a lot of people disagree with the war, and a lot of people do hate the military. Not everybody, but there are a lot of people that do have a lot of hate for them. And so you do a good thing. You think you're defending your country, and then you come back to a world that you can't assimilate into and people fucking hate you. Like that. Plus you've got all these, you know, horrible experiences that you've had that would be fucking rough. And then he starts telling that he starts breaking down. This is the first time he's gone from anger and he's absolutely crying. And you can hardly hear what he's saying. Like, I had to turn the movie up because he's just blubbering so much. Like, this is how good Sylvester Stallone is in this role. And he tells the story about how his friend, he walked into a bar and he went to get a beer for his friend, and then his friend was blown up in front of him, and he had pieces of his friend, like, all over him, and he can't get it out of his head, and he's just fucking sobbing, and he's completely breaking down. And the colonel leans down next to him and he just sobs in his arms because he's been holding that in. That's what they do because nobody understands. So they hold it in. And when they hold it in, it just makes things worse. But who can they talk to? Yes, psychologists, but even they don't fucking understand. The only people that understand are the ones that were there with them. And he doesn't have anyone left that was there with him. But it was a really, really, really powerful scene. And this is not in my trivia, but for the people that don't know this, the original ending of Rambo was Rambo got killed. When they played it in the cinema, like for people to see before the movie actually came out, they hated it. And so they went back and did reshoots for the final scene where Rambo broke down, and that fared better with people. And thank
Do,
God, because we got so many more Rambo movies that are awesome. But anyway, tell
yeah.
me.
Do you know? Do you know who killed him in the original ending? Like,
No. Do you?
oh, that would, no, I don't know. Actually, it's the first time that I ever heard that. I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't know
really?
that. Yeah, I mean, listen. I know a lot of stuff about this movie. I know a lot of tidbits, but it's the first time I heard
Mm.
that one. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah.
But this scene where Rambo is inches away from fucking killing the sheriff, which is something that all of us want who are watching this movie.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really good scene because, like Dean said, he broke down and he actually really addressed various different points that actual soldiers deal with after they come home from war. Because people that choose to serve, they do it out of a sense of duty, and
Mm.
to get treated like second class citizens when they come back to the country that they gave their lives to protect and to make sure that other people were safe and happy is a
Yeah.
bunch of bullshit.
It is.
Listen, I love my military, but the way that the way that my military treats his veterans is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is so awful. I mean, if it was up to me, every veteran when they come back from their deployment would have a house and a job,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Money in
and
the bank.
and
Oh, yeah.
also, I would give them the option if they'd never wanted to work in, they didn't have to because they shouldn't
Yep.
have to.
Yep.
They
I
shouldn't
agree.
have to.
I agree.
But that whole scene where Rambo breaks down, and specifically when he goes into that story about going into a bar, getting a beer for his friend, and then the next minute seeing his friend blown up in front of his eyes was just absolutely traumatic because he kept saying,
Mm.
I tried to put him back together because he was holding his intestines in his hand.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's the gnarliest thing in this movie, and it's so great. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know if Sylvester Stallone got an Oscar for this movie, but if
He should
if,
have.
if yeah, if they gave Oscars for single scenes, I would have given an
Yeah.
Oscar for that one because that scene was just so impactful, and it was my
Mm.
favorite scene of the movie because it really
Yeah.
illustrates what war can do to someone.
Yeah, exactly. And that story that he tells is actually a real story from a real vet.
Oh, oh, okay.
He wanted to, when they went to do the reshoots, he wanted to tell stories that were real. So he went around, he asked some people and he got those stories. So those were real stories that actually happened to someone, which is even more messed up.
Terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying. So the final scene of Rambo, he turns himself in to the police, and it's just a scene of him. He's handcuffed. He's walking to the car, and it's just like a still scene. Like it just stops on him, and then the credits come up, and you can see in his eyes that he's just done. Like he's so tired. He's done. He's tired. He's mentally, he's spiritually exhausted. He's physically exhausted. He's just like, all right, I'm just gonna like. Do you know what I mean? Like he's got nothing left. But that's the final scene of the movie. He just turns himself in, and that's the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah. Did you find the end song choice for the movie a little cheesy? I mean, I
Uh,
understand. Yeah. Listen. I love the '80s. Dean knows this. but come on, like really?
Well, if you thought that was cheesy, the song at the end of Rambo First Blood Part 2 is even more cheesy.
Uh,
I thought it was the same fucking song. Like, is this the same
okay,
song? But it's not. But yeah,
I guess
it's cheesy. But for the 80s, it worked. It was, I mean, look, this movie came out in 1982. So it might as
right,
well be the 70s. It's only 2 years into the 80s. So back
right,
then,
right, right,
it would have 100% worked. But
right.
now I agree, it is a little bit cheesy. So, should I go to my trivia?
Yes, off you go.
Okay, so this was really interesting. And this should have been in the movie. I don't know why they didn't. It would have made it so much more enriching. So the reason the sheriff hated Rambo, this was in the book, right? This is the reason why the sheriff hated Rambo, was because Rambo was a vet from the Vietnam War, but the sheriff was a vet from the Korean War, which people had forgotten at that point. So
What?
everybody was like Vietnam, Vietnam. Everybody had forgotten the people or the vets that served in the Korean War. That's
Why
why
the
he hated Rambo.
Why the hell didn't they put that in the movie? That would have
I
much that
don't know.
because because that would have been a double whammy because
I know.
you would have that initial hate for Rambo from the sheriff, and then you would have double the hate after Rambo defending himself killed that motherfucker Art, which happened to be the sheriff's best friend. That would have been great.
I know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea why they didn't do that. It would have just been like easier. Like just putting in like a little piece of dialogue. I mean, I feel like it needed it because it just made no sense
Yeah,
how he
no, no,
hated
and no,
Rambo.
no, and also the way that the film is, the sheriff comes off as an entitled son of a bitch that hates
Mm,
Rambo for no fucking reason. I
yeah,
mean, there is a reason later on after Rambo defending himself again
yeah,
killed
yeah,
Art, but that's not
yeah.
enough.
I know it's not enough, not enough. But anyway, okay. I thought this was funny. The first cut of the film was 3 hours long. And Sylvester Stallone thought the film was absolute trash. And he
Yep.
thought, oh my God, this is going to end my career.
Yeah.
And after multiple edits, they finally got it down to 93 minutes. And Sylvester went, yep, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, fun fact. Sylvester Stallone, and the producer of the film, his producing partner, tried to get their hands on the original negative after they saw the
Mm.
film and after it was 3 hours. They tried to burn the goddamn thing.
Oh my God, yeah.
And also, in the process of getting the movie down to 93, in the process of getting the movie down to 93 minutes, Sylvester Stallone discovered the less he talked as John Rambo, the
Yeah.
more effective it would be.
Yes. Yes. Sylvester Stallone is so
Yeah,
smart. He
come
is
on,
really
man.
fucking smart. And it fucking works too. It works.
It works.
So thank God for Sylvester. This was just interesting. Al Pacino was considered for the role of Rambo.
No.
Now remember, this was 1982, so like maybe.
No, wait. This is Al Pacino around Godfather time.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe.
Okay, I'll say maybe. I'll say maybe. I'll go with that.
No, I mean it's a no, but it's maybe.
No,
Um,
yeah, you know what? You know what? I'll go with maybe just because this is Al Pacino around Godfather time, so that's what I'll
right,
go
right,
with.
right. This is the last piece of trivia I have. You're gonna laugh at this. You're gonna laugh at this one. Okay. There were 26 drafts of the script before Sylvester Stallone wrote the final script. Oh, that gives me heart palpitations. I fucking
What?
I mean,
What?
listen,
Are you?
I've told Marcelo so many times, if I can't get a script right in 3 drafts, I discard it. And like, it's 26 drafts? No, fucking put me in a coffin and bury me. There's no way I would be able to handle that mentally.
My threshold is 4, and that's it. I'm like,
Yeah,
I can't.
yeah, 26? Fuck that.
Are
No.
you kidding me?
Yeah. But anyway, that's the end of my trivia, and I'm going to wrap the show up if there's nothing else from my co-host.
No, go right ahead.
Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed our screenwriter's take on the amazing movie that is Rambo First Blood. If you would like to email us, you can at themixtapepod@aol.com. If you like what we have to say, you can subscribe as we do very, very different movies each week, and hopefully we'll land on a movie that you like. Coming up next week, we have the 2013 film About Time, which has Rachel McAdams and Margot Robbie in it. So join us for that. I think that's going to be really light and really fun. And as I say each week with the podcast voice, if someone is kind enough to make you a mixtape, that must mean that they really love you. The Mixtape Podcast is a Balloonhead Productions presentation.